The Joe Rogan Experience.
What, if any, research have you done on artificial intelligence and robotics and autonomous weapons and the future of warfare, which a lot of people think is going to be like what we're seeing now in Yemen with drones, that we're going to be seeing that with robots on the ground, and that this will be the future?
Huge amount for the book that I wrote called The Pentagon's Brain. Mm-hmm. Really impactful moment was going to Los Alamos when I went there to meet a DARPA scientist who was working on an artificial brain for DARPA. I mean, this stuff is way...
Artificial brain.
Trying to create a system, a free-thinking system. And what... His name is Garrett Kenyon. What he told me was just utterly fascinating because, again, that human thing I'm always after is like, what are you doing? Uh-huh. I mean, leave the science. You've had lots of guys on here. I'll talk to you about the high technology elements. But I'm interested in who's doing that, who's creating that science and why. And he said to me, this is like where artificial intelligence is right now with scientists who are really looking into this. It's like Magellan, who will discover the new world?
Right.
But on the idea of frightening artificial intelligence, he told me an interesting story about his daughter. And he said, people seem to think facial recognition software is like telling us that we're one step away from AI, true AI. And he said, he showed me on his iPhone, this was a couple years ago, and how much trouble the iPhone had recognizing him, like if he put a hat on or if he made a funny face. And he said, my daughter can recognize me from across a baseball field, if I have a hat on, just by the way I walk, right? And he said if she couldn't, there would be something really wrong with her. In other words, her human recognition abilities are truly intelligent. And that is a system of systems, a biological system of systems that no scientist has, the algorithm for which no one has ever been able to figure out yet. And he believes that we're far away from that. But the Defense Department, on the other hand, is moving us in that direction and absolutely wants autonomous weapons to be fighting wars. Look, there was a program that said, I quote this in the book, it says, the battle place is no place for humans.
Whoa.
So drones are the way of the future.
Right, but they're used to kill people.
Which also means that the enemy is creating drone systems, and pretty soon that's going to be a big issue.
Yeah, that's the big fear. The big fear is that they're going to be the first ones to implement it.
I mean, what scares you about AI?
Everything. DARPA thinks AI could help troops telepathically control machines. Of course they do.
Right.
And they probably can. I mean, they've already got cursors that people can move around that are paraplegic. They can move them around with their mind and their eyes. Yeah, I think there's going to be quite a few of those things. What is this,
They've already
Jamie?
made this thing. This is called the Synapse. This is I'll read this thing. That's the...
Whoa. DARPA-funded program to develop electronic neuromorphic machine technology that scales to biological levels. More simply stated, it is an attempt to build a new kind of computer with similar form and function to the mammalian brain. Such artificial brains would be used to build robots whose intelligence matches that of mice and cats. Jesus Christ. Robot cats. Robot cats coming to get us.
Well, they created something called the robo-rat. That was the first biohybrid, right? So a biohybrid is when you mix an animal and a machine. And DARPA was doing that right before 9/11. And people freaked out. They were like, you cannot put brain chips in rats and make them move through a maze by a, remote control, which is what they were doing. And I interviewed the guys who were all working on this program before 9/11. And so the morality of the citizenry was like, no. Then 9/11 happened. And suddenly all this money got pumped into DARPA to do anything they wanted. The morality issue went out the window, and they started creating all kinds of biohybrids, as I write in The Pentagon's Brain. So they put, they now have pigeons that are mixed, animal and machine.
What?
they created something called, there's a moth. So there's a Mandica sexta moth. That's what it's called. It's a large moth. And DARPA scientists put brain chips into the larva, okay, so that when it cocooned and became a flying moth, it had the chip built into its system, making it easier to integrate, and they could fly the moth around the lab. And that was a huge step, and this is now 4 years ago that I was interviewing these scientists.
Did you see any of this stuff?
I didn't see the moth, but I told you I saw that the limb regeneration lab was a trip. And this is all...
What was going on there?
Well, they were just cutting limbs off of salamanders and watching the limbs grow back, right? And examining that and saying, well, if a salamander can do this, so can we one day. And I said to them, but wait, that's impossible, you know? And they said, well, it's not actually, because humans have... I love scientists who break it down into terms I can understand. It's like what Elon Musk did, you know?
Yeah.
Right? And they said to me, you were once a single cell in your mother's womb, and then you were two, and then you were, right? Mm-hmm. So you can regenerate. And that's their premise. I mean, these are the world's top scientists in regeneration.
What is this, Jamie?
It's the moth being stimulated by electrocurrents in its abdomen.
So the stimulation of the electrocurrents, they can cause it to go left or right? Is that it?
Yeah, I was just looking up these biohybrid moths.
What was the thing that you threw your hands on your head like you were freaking out? Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone. He was reading something. He went,
Yeah, I typed in.
What is it?
I started typing in biohybrid stuff, and this is the first thing that popped up was this
shrimp
article. Yeah, it says they're going to test them through Olympic-themed events.
Oh my God! Look at this. DARPA MTO seeks innovative proposals for the development of micro to milli insect-scale robotic technology. Shrimp. Will develop. Okay, so shrimp is
an acronym. Probably they love acronyms.
Will develop and demonstrate through a series of Olympic-themed events, multifunctional MM to CM scale robotic platforms. So I guess that's millimeter to centimeter scale. Robotic platforms with a focus on untethered mobility, maneuverability, and dexterity. To achieve this goal, Shrimp will also provide foundational research in the area of micro actuator materials and energy-efficient power systems for extremely capital letter S, capital level W, lowercase a, capital P, constrained microbiotic systems. It is expected such advances will be enabling for applications including search and rescue. Yeah, right. Search and rescue. Disaster relief. Yeah. We're going to help people. Hazardous environment inspection or killing motherfuckers with an evil nuclear bee. That's all you need.
It's always the search and rescue
bee that goes in your mouth and blows up. Fuck. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, they do all kinds of planning for the future.
Yeah.
But the search and rescue thing it's a great sort of way in which to present DARPA as doing all this great stuff. I interviewed DARPA scientists who said, "Look, Annie, we're able to send robots into Fukushima to twist the
cores,
right?
Yeah.
And yes, that is great, but that's far from the only thing.
Yeah,
that's
they're
being
trying
used
to kill
for.
people.
Right.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But here's a trip. You want to hear? I mean,
sure.
There are rabbit holes there because I've sourced all these documents and also interviewed generals at the Pentagon who are like, we don't like AI. We want this. We want our guys on the ground. They believe in the human, the warrior, that concept. And so the generals were very opposed to it. The DARPA took a vote and it was like, no AI. We want humans in the mix. And so what did DARPA start doing? And the generals, they said, why can't we go more autonomous? And the answer was, we don't trust the machines, okay? So right around that same time, what did DARPA start doing? It started looking into and hiring scientists who were working with how trust works in the brain, specifically with what is called the moral molecule. And it's this molecule in the brain that mothers emit when they're breastfeeding, Okay.
Oh, like oxytocin?
Yes. So think about that. And I mean, that's like the ultimate going way back biology. Like you have to have a mother, a trusting mother to breastfeed in, prehistory, or otherwise you'd be like, this is a bad idea. I'm stopping to do this. I'm going to die.
Right.
Right. So they examined that molecule, the brain's moral molecule, and they began a program to work with that, to be able to give that to soldiers so that they trusted AI machines. And that's where I think you're getting into really spooky, dark, multi-levels of manipulation about what humans want versus what the Pentagon wants.
Wow. The worry about trusting the machine scares the shit out of me, because that's what everyone's worried about when it comes to AI. Like, that's what Elon Musk keeps warning people about, that these things are going to have superhuman capabilities and they're going to be sentient, and it's a matter of when. Absolutely.
So I, as the journalist, said to myself, well, wait a minute. If the generals at the Pentagon, and that's a euphemism, but meaning the actual the guys that are in charge here don't want that, who does want this?
Right.
And where my research took me to was the group that wants that is what's called the Defense Science Board. And those are the individuals who are counseling the Pentagon in the manner in which they should proceed. And now those individuals are all sitting on the boards of the defense contractors. So you can really see how money drives the rubric. The generals don't want it. The humans don't want it. But guess who does? The people who stand to make the money, creating the autonomous systems. And that's exactly what Eisenhower warned us of in his farewell speech, the military-industrial complex.
Yes.
And the other part of that speech, which people don't know as well, is that what he said, his antidote, Eisenhower said this, the antidote to the military-industrial complex is an alert and knowledgeable citizenry. It's why I write my books, because an alert and knowledgeable citizenry has the ability to kind of push back and go, but we don't want that.
I think what we're worried about is Pandora's box, right, when it comes to AI. And we're worried that, first of all, if we're not the ones to open it, what if they open it? All right, what if the Chinese open it? And obviously their technology is super, super advanced. I mean, their electronic technology in particular, their cell phones are cutting edge. I mean, Apple and all these other companies are struggling to try to keep up with Huawei and these One FC or what is the fucking One ST? What is that one? What is that big company that they just released some? They've just hired Robert Downey Jr. to give him millions of dollars to OnePlus. Yeah, OnePlus 7. They have this new phone that doesn't have a front-facing camera. You press a button, it slides out of the top. They figured out a way to make the entire phone all screen. And they're incredibly advanced in terms of their electronics. We deeply are concerned that they're going to be the ones that implement military, autonomous, sentient robotics before we do. Because then you can launch them with no physical human cost on your side. And I mean, they're literally weapons of mass destruction if you have robots that can go over there and just kill people.
And what they need for that is the world's fastest supercomputer, right? And what's interesting is that we America just overtook the Chinese in having the world's fastest supercomputer, but they had it for a couple years. And think about this, okay? Because you were saying hard to believe the Nazis were only, not even like just in our grandfather's age, right?
Yeah.
So go back in time to then. Listen to this this really freaked me out in terms of progress. Right after the war, a guy called John von Neumann got a grant from the Atomic Energy Commission to essentially build the world's first computer. I mean, they existed, but he built the first computer that could actually do calculations, okay? Before that, calculations were done with by calculators. Computers were humans. But there's this amazing story of von Neumann in the basement of the Princeton Institute for Advanced Study where he built this computer with government funds. And because he was a brilliant polymath, he could add faster than anyone around him. Okay? He's also the guy who calculated at what level the atomic bomb should explode over Hiroshima for the most blast. Okay? Because it didn't hit the ground, it wouldn't kill as many people, right? So this is how his mind worked. So he's faster than the computer. He has a pen and paper in front of him, and he can outperform the world's fastest computer with his own brain. 2.5 years into it, in 1949, The computer beats him. And he made a statement then that said, one day, artificially intelligent machines will be the ruin of man. I mean, I'm paraphrasing. But that was his prediction. But that was in 1949.